Well, hey everybody, Will Hinkey here. Hope you're having a great day. My company is called Red Canoe Media. Today we're going to have actually a little bit shorter webinar than usual. When I promoted this, I promoted it as a 45-minute webinar, but I bet we're going to go closer to maybe just 30 minutes. So that's probably good. Good for your time, right? Get you back to work to doing some other fun stuff, I'm sure. But anyway, let's get started here. I'm going to hide that little thing. And first of all, I'm going to tell you a couple things. I'm going to tell you about a friend of mine's website that was hacked and what happened, that we discovered it in the first place, what we did about it, and then how you can avoid it. So there's a couple things under the how you can avoid it that we're going to go through. And lastly, the big one, which is how to get your website back into Google. So typically when your site is hacked, Google is pretty good about seeing that and basically de-indexing you or taking you out of their system so that they're not sending people to a hacked website, which could contain malware, viruses, all kinds of craziness, right? So they kick you out. So the big thing you need to know is how to get back into Google, Yahoo, Bing, those sort of websites, search engines. So we're going to talk about that lastly. But first of all, let's talk about what happened. Now, if you are a hockey fan, and particularly the St. Louis Blues, one of the things we're always saying is what happened. You know, usually near the end of the season, we were doing so well, and then it all just kind of crumbles. It seems to happen every year to us. So we're going to talk about what happened. And what happened is I was having breakfast, with a friend of mine named Steve. And Steve and I were sitting there talking about various business things. One of the things that came up was Steve was wanting to get more into branding. And he's really good at helping people understand branding and their message and their positioning, things of that sort. So that was kind of Steve's, what he wanted to get out of our conversation. And I said, well, what you really need to do is check out some people that are already doing that, see what they're doing, see what you can adopt for your own business, those sort of things. One of those people is a lady named Cynthia Carell. Cynthia is a communication architect is what she calls herself. She's terrific at those sort of things, branding, creating one sheets that are easy to digest, infographics, those sort of things. So I said, well, you need to check out Cynthia because she's kind of doing that same thing. So I went to Google and typed in Cynthia Carell, and I was going to just share her website with Steve. And what happened was this came up. This site may be hacked with her link, obviously not her title tags, not her description. So there's definitely some things going on that are wrong here that Google's finding on her website. And this is a problem. So at that point, I'm like, you know what? I need to contact Cynthia and let her know something crazy is going on. So that's part two. What did we do about it? Well, one of the things, obviously, first of all, is I shot Cynthia an email and said, hey, was having breakfast with Steve, telling him about you, pulled up your site, and it's a bunch of craziness going on, right? So I also gave her an article that I had written about when Google mislabels your site as being hacked or being dangerous, and how to fix it. Well, it turns out her website really is, or really was, hacked at the time. So that article kind of was incorrect because, it actually was, and that wouldn't have helped her. But of course, she emailed me back within a day or two. Hey, I'd like to hire you to help me get this fixed. So, can you help me? Well, of course, I can. So, I want to kind of talk about, WordPress. So her website is on WordPress. Most small business owners are using WordPress. Some are using other systems like GoDaddy's Website Tonight, Wix, Weebly, some of those, but they all kind of work the same, right? So even sites like Magento, platform like Magento, which is a more for e-commerce and stuff, still kind of works the same way that I'm going to go through. And the way that these websites work is there's two main pieces to a website. There's all the files that sit on your web server or your web hosting that you're paying for, and then there's the database. So the other piece is the database that kind of drives all of the data, whereas the files just go and find that data. Now, when you're looking at a website, you pull up somebody's homepage or something like that, and you just see a pretty page, and you think, well, this was created all at once, or this is their homepage, and it's just some page that lives somewhere. But in reality, each of these different items on this page are different pieces that are called from the database. So this one page may call the database 30 times. What is the title? What are the navigation buttons? What is the welcome message? What is the body content? What sidebars? What image are they using? And then we see all this recent post on this particular example. Those are each calls to the database saying what are the last 5 links to the posts that they made. All of these things are database calls. So when you're pulling up one website, it may be calling the database many times. At the same time, it's also looking at things like your browser. What browser are you using? What device are you using, so that it can basically render the output or what you see at the end of the day differently depending on how wide your screen is, which way your phone is turned. Lots of different pieces going on to make sure that everything looks pretty, everything looks correct, and that everything looks professional, quite honestly. So there's a lot of different things. Then we add in all kinds of plugins, right? If you're familiar with WordPress or any of these, most businesses have some sort of plugins running, whether it's for security or it's for SEO or it's WooCommerce for adding on an e-commerce thing where you can sell products. There's all kinds of plugins to make WordPress do kind of anything you want it to do, really. So we add all those in. Each of those get their own sort of updates as well. So lots of different pieces just to have one website up and running. And as I said, I'm using WordPress as an example, but most of the other ones kind of do the same thing. So here's what's happening, particularly with Cynthia's site, is she launched her site in, I think, 2015. Since that time, there had been 19 file updates to her system. So WordPress itself, the company, comes out with updates to their software that need to be applied to keep it from getting hacked, quite honestly. Different vulnerabilities that they find, upgrades, things that make the user interface easier. And then at the same time, other things start to update, such as the way that the theme is rendered or how it looks on the screen. Updates from wherever you got your look and feel or your design, right? Those updates were available as well. At the same time, each of these individual plugins had updates. Some of them had a lot. Some of them just had a couple, but some of them had a lot. Every time one of these systems update their stuff or their software, those need to be applied fairly quickly in order to keep the hackers at bay, I guess you could say. The strange thing that I've always seen, and I don't know that there's anything to do about it, when a software company comes out and launches a new version, right? We've got an update to our system. One of the things that they release is a list of things they fixed. Well, that's terrific. However, the hackers could use that same information to see where the vulnerabilities were, right? So then they can just go to start looking for sites that haven't updated themselves. They already know what the vulnerabilities are, and then they could use that to their advantage. Now, like I said, I don't know that there's a fix to that because they really need to be issuing these updates and letting people know what they fixed so that bugs are tracked, that sort of stuff. But, they can be used as a disadvantage to us as well. So here we are. We have 19 updates to her core files that needed to be done and weren't. Well, of course, we went to start updating those, and if you added all of the different updates together, there were 41 updates. So I think it's fair to say that she was a little bit behind on her updates, and quite honestly, she didn't know that she even needed to do them. So, as a lot of small business owners are, hey, we need a website. The website person builds their site, hands it over to them. They say, okay, here's your website. It's up and running. What they typically don't tell them is that they need to keep their website up to date. They need to keep at least these core files up to date, any new releases from them, any plugin updates, all of these different things. And this can be a little bit time consuming to keep this all up to date. But Cynthia had 41 updates that she had not done, which is, I have Cynthia here, but quite honestly, most business owners are probably in the same boat. As I said, they don't know that they need these updates. So here's the average small business owner backup plan or disaster recovery plan. Now, in Cynthia's case, there actually were no backups running on her site either. So there wasn't something we could go back and revert to. Now, a lot of people think that if I have web hosting, that I probably also have daily backups or weekly backups to the server. And sometimes that's not true. Some hosting companies only do maybe monthly, maybe weekly backups, but most likely more like monthly or quarterly backups. On top of that, some web hosting companies also only do incremental updates. In other words, they only update things that have changed instead of the entire system as a whole being updated. So this can be a big problem. Not having these backups are a big problem. And like I said, most business owners assume that they're just being done. So if you're not sure, definitely you need to get a hold of your hosting company, find out if backups are being made, how often they're being made, and or start running your own backups, quite honestly. Here we go. Back up your stuff. And it's pretty self-explanatory, and we'll talk a little bit more about this in detail as we go on. So the other thing that I did, or one of the first things I did, I should say, for Cynthia, is we logged into Google Webmaster Tools, which is now called Google Search Console. And sure enough, when we did, Google was reporting all of these problems, harmful content. At the same time, the hackers had injected some malware and some other downloads to her pages that were causing anybody who was visiting her website to immediately be infected with all of these problems on their computers. Not good, not good in the least, right? And of course, there's a box down there at the bottom saying I've fixed these issues, which we did not check at this time. But if you do not have a Search Console set up on your site, you need to do this. You go to google.com/webmasters. Get this all set up. You'll have to verify that you're the owner of your site. There are a couple steps to that. If you need help, of course, we'd be happy to do that for you. But this is something that this is the Search Console is what they call it. It really is the place that tells you the health of your website from Google's standpoint. So things that they're seeing related to your site, whether it's incoming links, it's malware, it's pages that are not found, they're having trouble crawling, lots of different things that they'll tell you. So we saw this in there and said, yeah, we really need to start cleaning this up. So in Cynthia's case, she was hosting at a company called Bluehost, and what I did is, first of all, I backed up all of her stuff, even though it was hacked. I wanted to have a backup, so I backed everything up. Then I went and ran all 41 updates. So as you can probably assume, this was not a cheap fix for her, and quite honestly could have been avoided. But nonetheless, we ran all 41 updates. Then I jumped on the Bluehost support chat and say, hey, John, or whatever, we've gone through and fixed this website. Google is saying that it's hacked. Can you help? And they came back with this list on the right hand of all of these pages that basically were hacked in some way. And we had to go through and manually delete each one of these. This is not the full list. I think there were around maybe 17 or 20 different things that needed to be fixed and mostly deleted. So we went through, fixed all of these different things. And sure enough, when I was finished, I went to this one, for instance, that was a page that was there that was hacked, and now it came back as a not found error, but meaning that page had been successfully been deleted from the server. So then, of course, we jumped back on the Bluehost chat and said, "Hey, we've cleaned all these up, and need you guys to do another scan." And well, I think everything's done. It's really kind of tough to know, but Bluehost was really good about helping us out. And sure enough, they came back and said, "Yep, it looks like everything's clean now." So our next step is back to Google, right? It's to pray to the Google gods to let us back in to their index, because without it, we're not going to get any search traffic. We're not going to rank for anything. Basically, they've temporarily taken us out of their system, to be honest. And so we needed to do this, in short. And the way that we did that is something that I will explain in a couple minutes. But one of the things you can do to avoid this is pretty obvious. Start backing up your website on a very regular basis. And this could mean daily, it could mean weekly. It really just depends on your system and how often you're changing your site, those sort of things. So that's the first step. Definitely back up your website. If you're on a WordPress system, then there are a lot of different options for you for plugins that can help you with this. There's Backup Buddy, Updraft Plus. These are the two popular ones. There's also BackWP Up VaultPress. So there's a lot of different plugins that you can download. Some of these are free. They will back up to your hosting, so they'll actually write a copy of your entire website on your hosting platform as a backup file. If you have a decent sized site, then this might start cluttering up your hosting hard drive space fairly quickly. So there are paid versions of most of these plugins, and the paid versions could be $10 a month, $20 a month, something like that. But one of the really cool things that they'll do is they will let you dump the backups to some sort of a cloud hosted service. That could be Dropbox, Amazon S3 has a cloud service, a lot of different cloud type services that you can hook up to, and basically just keep dumping copies up to these services. So keeps your hard drive on your hosting company from being cluttered. It also, at the same time, puts your backup on a different server, which is great, because if your server goes down and all your backups are on that server, that can be a problem as well, right? You can't get to your backups. So having them on an external cloud service is a terrific idea. All right, let's talk about how to update. The other thing you can do is when you log in to the back end of your website, assuming you do, is to start looking for these little circles, notification things. In this case, here's one that says you have 4 updates. All right. When WordPress comes out with a new version of their software, there's a link at the top saying that this is a new version and you need to update your website. Now, before you click that button, you need to make sure, absolutely sure, that you have a good backup of your site. Because if not, and you update something and it crashes halfway through, the database doesn't update correctly, things like that, you could run into more problems than you started out with. So definitely run a backup first, and then start running these updates. So you can just click the button, and typically they'll kind of self-update them, through the system. It could take a couple minutes. It could run in the background and take an hour. It really just depends on external factors such as the speed of your server, speed of your internet connection, things of that sort. Secondly, theme updates. So every time that you install a website or build a website, you also have to have some sort of a theme that's running it. And this is your look and feel and your design, things like that. These are written by third parties, so they're not written by WordPress. They're written by such and such agency, design graphic agency, those kind of things. So they come up with updates as well. So you need to make sure that you're updating those in addition to the actual WordPress core files, you need to make sure that anytime there is a theme update that you keep those up to date as well. And typically, once again, those will show up with the little updates thing, with the little thing, notification circle. Plugins. Plugins all have updates as well. And again, each of these are individually written, not written by WordPress. As you can see here, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different ones, and 5 different ones, I guess. And each of these were written by a different person. They're on different versions. So as these updates become available, they typically show up under your plugins tab saying, hey, there's a new version. Click the Update Now button. And here we go again. Before you click any of these update buttons, make sure that you've run a good backup prior to it, because if they've fudged on their update, they missed a character, they fat-fingered something, it can actually bring down your entire site. So always make sure that you update these. And quite honestly, to do it correctly, you would actually click, like in this example, click the Update Now button, and then go make sure your website's still working correctly. Then come back and run the next update. Go make sure your website's working correctly. That way, if it does crash, you know which plugin caused the problem. So at least you can start to kind of go back and do some research, those sort of things. So all of these different things, of course, lots and lots of different things. If you're a small business owner, of course, you have plenty of time to log in and keep these up to date all of the time, because you're not busy doing anything else, like maybe running a business or chasing down leads, right? So one thing that we do have is a backup service. We call it WordPress Care. What we will actually do is back up your website daily to an off-site service. In our case, we use Amazon S3 cloud services. At the same time, we will go in and update any sort of problems you have, any plugins, any theme updates, any WordPress core files. So you're getting those daily backups. You're getting a constant update and keeping your website healthy. And really, these are the big things that you can do to avoid getting hacked. If you are interested in this, we have a 40% off special right now. And this 40% off is in perpetuity. So it's every year. It's not a one-time deal. 40% off if you use this particular link. Excuse me. Sorry about that. redcanoemedia.com/hacked will get you there. There's a 40% off promo code with using the word hacked. So when you go add to cart, just type in hacked and you'll get the 40% off special. And as I said, that is ongoing. So it's every year, not just a one-time deal. But this is a great system to help you. In addition, I'll send you a copy of a book that I wrote called Defeating an Internet Boogeyman that shows you some different things that businesses have done to keep their websites fresh, to keep their overall reputation online from being tarnished. Or if somebody else comes along and decides to do some harmful things to your particular brand, how you can defend yourself from those, how to keep those things from happening, all that kind of stuff. I'd be happy to send you one of those books. And that's it. So I've got some time for questions, and then I want you to make sure you stick around for the last step, which is, of course, how we got Cynthia's website back into the system. So, all right, let me jump over here to the questions and see what we've got. All right, Denny is asking, how often should I back up my site? So yeah, I did kind of touch on that a little bit, and I didn't go into it in detail, but I will do that right now. So if you're running, let's say you're running an average small business website, and this is a brochure type site. So maybe you haven't updated it, you haven't changed it very much. It just kind of tells what your services are, what your prices are, and it has a contact information. If that's really all that you're using your site for, you could probably get away with checking this stuff once a week and running those updates. If, on the other hand, you are consistently blogging or adding content to your site, and I would definitely recommend doing so, then you may want to run this a little bit more often. And lastly, if you're in a situation where it's an e-commerce type website where you're selling things, taking orders, you're going to need to keep this up to date every day, really. Anytime that there are updates, these things need to be looked at. They need to be updated, because if you update something and a couple days later you get hacked for some reason, you could actually lose that history going back those couple days. If you need to revert to a backup that's maybe 2 or 3 weeks old, you're not going to have any, other than maybe an email, you're not going to have any way to go back and see who bought what. And that's a real problem. So for an e-commerce situation, you definitely need to be updating the site very, very often, daily, if not every 2 or 3 days. As far as backups, definitely every day. Your website needs to be backed up in that kind of situation. And really at the end of the day, I think the big thing is make sure that your hosting company is running something at an absolute minimum. Make sure that they're running some sort of backups. If your website isn't changing very often and it's more of a brochure, you might be able to get away with their monthly backups. And if something crashes, you can revert to the one from 2 or 3 weeks ago that they ran, and everything will be fine. That might work for you. It really just depends on your situation. So hopefully that helps, Denny. Don't know what kind of website you're running, but that should help. Pamela is asking which plugin you prefer. So I'll go back and talk about a couple of these. Let's see if I can go back to that particular one. So I have familiarity with several of these. We've used Updraft Plus for a couple of years now, and we're pretty happy with it. We had some trouble with a couple clients, and it was enough that we ended up switching over to Backup Buddy. Now, both of these plugins are terrific, and they do a great job. We prefer the Backup Buddy plugin just because we had some other troubles with the Updraft and kind of moved over to that. But either of these would be great. And then if you want to actually get the paid version of these, I'm going to look it up for you very quick. Buddy pricing. I'll pull it over to the other screen here. Backup Buddy is made by iThemes. And let's see. Here we go. So one site, and it looks like there's a coupon for 25% off if you plug your email address in there, so that's good. One site, $80 for a year, so that's a pretty good deal. If you want a little bit more control, there's some other stuff, but they've actually got a 1 gig backup storage space that they'll give you, so related to your instead of trying to get like a Dropbox or something like that, you can actually use their system to back up your stuff offsite, which is nice. Updraft Plus does the same kind of stuff, and any of these are really good. If you're not using WordPress, then you probably just need to go to Google and type in whatever your platform is, backups. Now, if you're using a service like Wix or Weebly or GoDaddy, website builder, they probably have some sort of built-in backup system, and they probably don't give you an option to use plugins, which is kind of crappy, but you get what you pay for. If you're using WordPress, then I would definitely recommend one of these services. All right, so I don't see any other questions. So I'm just gonna press on here. The last thing that we did is we went back to Google Search Console, and as you saw when I mentioned this, right down here at the bottom on this screen, I have fixed these issues. So after we went through Bluehost and talked to them, got everything cleaned up, we went back and check marked this box, and then we could click the Request a Review button. Once we requested that review, then we sat and wait, and we're back to praying to the Google gods. And finally, we got this email from Google And it was about 5 weeks from the time that we clicked that button to the time that we got this email. So not only were we out of their index during the time that it was hacked, and she doesn't know how long ago that happened to be from the time I discovered it, but then after it got fixed, we're still looking at another 4 to 6 weeks before Google even puts it back into their index. So this is the email that you'll get. Check your issues, things like that. But it looks like we're back into the system. So lots of different steps to get into here, and make sure that you're doing all these. And if not, definitely shoot us an email or go to this website, redcanoemedia.com/hacked. Use the promo code HACKED, HACKED, and get 40% off. And we will take care of this. We'll run your offsite backups. If your website does ever get hacked, we will cover all of our time to get it fixed, everything like that. There is no additional cost to you in that case. So thank you for jumping on. Hope you have a super great day, and we will talk to you soon.